Hi, everybody. It's Mazen and PJ. It is 3turn3 today. Guess what? It's 3turn2 today. Charlene had an unavoidable appointment that she forgot about and just remembered. So, you know what? She's off the hook because we're still going to talk skating. We're still happy to have everybody along. Don't forget, you can leave comments. You can leave whatever you want in the chat. Some of you may have noticed that I did not write my preview this week. Why? Because the event had already started. Mazen, what's wrong with me?
Life just kind of takes over.
Doesn't it just? So it's NHK trophy this week. A couple of the events have already happened. I'm going to have to tell the dog to be quiet. So you take it away and start talking skating.
Hi, everybody. Listen, welcome to our show. We miss you, Charlene. We're going to see you next week, obviously. You know what? It's not the same without you, but we're going to try to do our best.
Exactly. Now, just so people know, next week's show, people are going to want to tune into, because guess who's coming to join us?
Who?
Scott Russell from CBC, who loves skating, and Garth, of course, will be here as well. I just couldn't get my act together.
Garth. Turn Garth's face. Garth, say
hello to all your friends. He's only got 2 teeth. He's called a Chinese crested.
He's the most amazing rescue dog.
He is. We've had him for 4 years now. He's now 10 years old, and he's standing on my bed looking out the window because I'm in my bedroom/office. Anyway, that's a story for a different day. So next Friday, the 19th at 10 a.m., Scott Russell is going to join us, and he's going to talk everything skating because, honestly, the man loves skating. I've done podcast episodes with him before. I've done Facebook Live episodes with him before. He is somebody who loves the sport and knows the sport and is so excited about the Olympic Games. Guess who else is excited about the Olympic Games?
Well, besides us?
Yeah, the skaters. Exactly. Now you're
absolutely.
So you were at sectionals this past weekend. We're going to go a little bit more local. Don't forget, everybody, if you have any questions or any comments, we'd be happy to have them. Just put them in the chat box below this screen. And welcome to everybody. I'm so happy that you're here to join us. Okay, Mazen, let's talk a little bit about sectionals.
What should we talk about?
Well, let's talk about Maddie Skizis because she was fresh off her competition at Skate Canada. She competed at sectionals. Did you watch her skate?
I saw her short program, and unfortunately, I had a conflict when she was skating her long program with another event going on in another arena. That's what happened.
But she ended up winning the sectionals event.
She did. Yep. Her short program was stellar. Very nice, very confident. Once again, I think for Maddie, what she's doing is extremely correct. She is getting herself out there as much as possible just to keep building on her confidence and keep building on her performance, and so that it just feels a little easier and a little easier each time she goes out there. So good for her.
So you know what's interesting, all of the women, because we've only got one women's spot for Canada for the Olympic Games, they're all really competing. They're all really going out there. I know that former world bronze medalist, former bronze or silver. Yeah, that Olympic silver medalist as well in the team event, Gabby Daleman. She is training lights out. She was at the sectionals championship, but I think she only skated the short program. Is that right? Because she ended up going to Poland for an international event.
No, she did the long as well, sweets.
Oh, she did. Okay.
Yeah.
There was somebody else. There was a men's competitor, maybe Nam Nguyen, who did just the short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, I think he only did his short program because he's currently competing right now in NHK.
Okay. Let's turn the attention to NHK. So good luck to all of the Ontario competitors who are out there traveling the world to compete. Good luck to the Ontario competitors who are at home, because you and I are sitting in Ontario. So we have a special affection for Ontario skaters, but Canadian skaters in general. Go get them. I know that you were able to watch some of the NHK trophy events so far online. Let's start with the pairs, because not only are you a coach, you're a former pair skater and a former pair coach. So former pair skater, tell me what you saw and what you liked.
So at NHK, what I thought was so impressive was the fact that last year's world champions competed in their first senior Grand Prix event. And boy, did they deliver. Now, they competed with the same short program that they competed with last year. And by the sounds of it, that was a smart decision for them to have made. And it was just as dynamic, just as strong, just as charismatic, sorry. And they were great. They were great. They're in the lead right now.
Now, tell me their names,
Oh,
because I'm evil.
okay. You're the word broker here. So, okay. Help me out there, folks. All right. She is Anastasia Machina, and he is Alexander Galimov. I hope I'm saying that correctly, guys.
It's pretty close. It's pretty close. Now, I want to ask you a question. In a year when you win a world title, this is my feeling. In a year when you win a world title, regardless of who else is competing or not competing, you're still a world champion. That has to do a lot for your confidence. What do you say about that?
Absolutely. You go down in the history books.
Yep.
At the end of the day, in figure skating history, you are recorded in that book that you are the world champion, and nobody can ever take that away from you. So that gives you a sense of confidence. That gives you a sense of fire in your belly to carry on, to keep going. And going into an Olympic year, I think it just really helps.
There is no doubt in my mind. So the thing that I noticed with the pairs event, maybe in particular, I'm really drawn in by choreography, and I'm really drawn in by style, which is why Wenjing Sui and Song Han have my heart this year, because I love both the short and the free. When you compare Machina and Galyamov to, let's say, Morozov, come on, help me out. I've just gone blank right now.
Trusova.
Yeah. Tarasova and Morozov.
Tarasova, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Tell me what you think and how you compare those two Russian pairs, because Tarasova and Morozov ended up they're in second place.
Second.
Is that not correct?
Yeah. Yeah, she had a stumble on the side-by-side jump. She fell on the triple toe, but the rest of the program was exquisite. So how I kind of label it is that between those two Russian teams, last year's world champions short program is very charismatic, very European flair to being cute, and the characterization that they bring out within the program. Their elements are stellar. Now you have the other pair team of Tarasova and Morozov, and their short program is exquisite. It's classical. It's beautiful lines, a lot of flow. So, and their elements are just as exquisite. At the end of the day, it's whichever one is going to do the cleanest short program is going to be on top. And last year's world champions did the cleanest short program. They're on top.
So what do you think the pairs need to do in order to sort of come out on top?
I think they need to trust their training.
Okay.
I think they need to have a relationship with one another as they're competing. They need to kind of be able to express that comfort of being with one another as they're competing. And at the same time, again, it's about the cleanliness of the elements. I mean, everything is important in figure skating, and especially within short programs, as we know. But in the pair skating, you've got the double process of something potentially going wrong. Okay. So for instance, in the side-by-side spins, it could very easily be a slight loss of balance with one partner or the other partner, and then the unison gets off. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
And, in the step sequence, when you're not holding on to one another and you're doing all of those steps and turns, trying to have them synchronized with one another, there's that potential. Obviously the danger factor in all of the lifts, the danger factor and the risk factor in the twists, right? Yesterday at NHK, there were two teams that, struggled in the short program with their twist element. And do you know what? It can happen. Mm-hmm. It can happen. It doesn't happen often, but it can happen. So
So
those are
let
some of the things that they kind of, it all of skating, I think, has a risk and a danger factor to it. And I think that's what makes it so exciting to watch and to be
yeah,
a part of.
for sure. I just was looking at the women's results. Kaori Sakamoto sits in first place with, a good sort of 3 points ahead of Mana Kawabe, who is her teammate and who sits in second place. Mana was at Skate Canada, if I'm not mistaken, sort of finished around ninth. Dylan Moskovich on that skating show, his pick to take the title is Young Yu of Korea, who sits in third place. And then Alyssa Liu from the United States sits in fourth. Again, I think that some of these results come down to not only the skate, that's just the short program, of course. Some of the results come not just um, from the skate, but actually the product. So let's just talk broad strokes again about single skating and what the choreography can mean.
Well, you know what? I mean, that's what it's coming down to right
Yeah.
now. It's almost, I don't want to say it's a battle because I think that just sounds kind of rough, but it really is about which program exudes, the ability to let that skater come out and to really express themselves to the best of their ability. I mean, let's put it this way, that especially with, obviously the guys doing so many quads in the program, there was a point in time where, the artistic side of the program kind of got pushed to the wayside because of the focus in on those guys trying to set up a quad jump. Well, you know what? Now they're bringing that back better. They're
Mhm.
feeling more comfortable attempting and, executing quads in their program so that now they can try to bring back up that artistry, in the program. But at the same time, the women, okay, the Russian women, are doing and attempting and executing as many quads sometimes as some of the guys in the programs. So there too, they have to bring that artistic, flair to what our sport is all about. And I think the choreography of all of the programs is really, really important.
Yeah, I think so too. By the way, Elizabeth Cardosa Taylor, one of our fans, and we're a fan of yours too, Elizabeth, said Mana Kawabe was just added to NHK within the past few days. It was Rika Kahira, who was going to be skating at NHK, who withdrew, citing injury. And we have a like from Christine Love. Thank you so much, Christine, for being a part of this. Everybody else, if you've got comments or anything else that you want to share with us, we are very happy to have you. If you want to check out my blog, here is where you go, pjkwong.com/blog. And we hope that you will like and subscribe to this channel and on Facebook as well. So Mazen, big takeaways from the men's event.
From NHK, we're still
Yes.
with NHK.
Yeah.
Wow. The the guys were great, Peach. The
Yeah.
guys were great. I mean, let's talk right now. Who's in the lead? But Shoma Uno is in
Yeah.
the lead right now after the short program with 102 and change points. And then Vincent Joe is in second place right now with 99 points and change.
Okay.
And then we have Jun Cha from South Korea in third place with 95 points. All three of them skated great.
And
All
then we've
three of
got
them skated great. I think that was just fantastic.
Mateo Rizzo, who won the Winter Universiade and actually put his name got put on my radar. That was back in 2019. He's from Italy and coached by his dad. Interesting story and very, very charismatic skater. So he currently is sitting in sixth place with 84 points. But Shoma Uno, 102.58 points. Can you tell me about that particular skate? What did you like about it?
So you know what? Well, first of all, on camera, I've never seen Shomo live. You have. I've never seen him live, but on camera, the speed that fella skates, I think,
Yeah.
is just phenomenal. And his landing flow on his jumps is just incredible. When he hits them, he really hits them. Now, he did the quad flip in the short program where he stumbled on it at Skate America. And so that was really great for us to be able to see. And in his combination, he ended up doing a quad toe, double toe, which I'm not really sure what happened. But nonetheless, anyway, beautifully done, but it wasn't probably what he wanted to do. He probably wanted to do the quad triple. I'm sure he wanted to do the quad triple. And his axle was beautiful. His triple axle was beautiful. And the whole program just kind of carried its way through, which was just great. So good for him. Good for him.
Knee action, eh? That knee action is just spectacular. Honestly.
Absolutely.
You were just talking about quads. You were talking about Russian women, and Lorna Schroeder, one of my favorite judges of all time. Hey, hi, Lorna. Two of the Russian women are injured, and Elizabeth comes up with a comment, which is the prevalence of injuries a result of pushing too hard, too fast? I don't know. I mean, there have always been injuries in figure skating. So there have always been people who have, struggled with injuries one way or the other. I don't really know what to say about that. That's kind of what elite sport is in some ways. Although I do believe that, it's a lot of stress and strain on these bodies, like the amount of torque, I guess, when, on the landing foot after you're doing some of these, high revolution jumps. I can't even imagine. So what are your thoughts on kind of injuries and on young people and pushing too hard, too fast? Thanks for those comments, by the way, Lorna and Elizabeth. I appreciate them.
Thank you. The body can only take so much.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, what we do find is a couple of different schools of thoughts. And that is when you're training to only do X amount of something, because your body can only take so much. So let's just take, for instance, the quads. A human's knees and back and joints can only take so much. And it's probably even tougher when you're learning them, right? Because you're still trying to learn the timing to try to, perfect the timing of being able to get that extra rotation into your jump. That's really tough to do. And then once you get it, whether or not you're now pushing your body to its limits, doing X amount of quads on a practice session, and then saying, okay, that's it for today. Or the other school of thought, and that is to train it, no matter what, so that you just feel that much more comfortable with it, and to kind of just, grunt through that pain. There are different schools of thoughts of elite sport, as you know, and as I know, of how some people, train and push their bodies to the limits. And I think that's what sometimes is kind of evident when you hear about injuries, right?
Yeah.
Because I think if you were to ask somebody, how did that injury take place? They'd kind of tell you, well, it took place on this particular element. But then if you dive more into it, you're going to probably find out, well, that's because they did
75,000.
30 tries on one, 50-minute or hour session. And you know what? And sometimes that's pretty clear. It's like, you don't have the same energy going into that quad as, for the 10th time as you do for the first time. Dude,
for sure.
You don't.
Well, the other thing is too, I mean, techniques have certainly evolved since I was a skater. I could probably do a quad now. No, I couldn't. Who are we kidding? But techniques have certainly evolved. I mean, I think of the number of skating people my age who've had hip replacements.
Right.
Because, in trying to learn how to do more triples than quads, for sure. But in trying to learn those jumps, a lot of falling and injuring of, hips, which of course, 25, 30 years down the road, ends up in a hip replacement. Bless you, Joanne Shaw, for saying that we could do quads. Bless your heart. I agree. Listen, we've got a couple of great comments. One again from Joanne Shaw. How true is that the body can only do so much and then injury happens? And from Craig Drubbett. Hey, Craig, good to see you. Injuries happen. You go when you're ready. There's no benefit in losing a season to injury by rushing a skill. But it's a very fine line. I mean, you're trying to sort of like hold a wild horseback, who wants to run, and you're trying to be sensible. And sometimes, as I said, not all coaches have the benefit of the knowledge that is required of the body's systems. So,
now, Pete, as well, I mean, talking about injury, that's exactly what we're being told is taking place right now with Yuzu.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, and there was a fair bit of chatter about him wanting to try to execute the quad axle. So I'm not saying
NHK.
Yeah,
at
I don't
NHK.
know how his injury, has happened, to him, but nonetheless, you kind of think to yourself, like, that's what happens in elite sport, that these athletes,
Yeah.
push themselves to try to push the sport to another level. And the next thing you know, potentially they can be injured.
Yeah. Listen, we're going to talk a little bit about ice dance.
Yay!
So, in the rhythm dance, Victoria Sinitsina and Nikita Katsalapov from Russia are in the lead, but only by 0.31 points ahead of Madison Chalk and Evan Bates. They're 10 points, however, ahead of third place Lila Fear and Lewis Gibson from Great Britain, who are only 0.03 points ahead of Sara Hurtado and Kirill Kalyavin from Spain. Now, what's really cool is that Marjorie Lajoie and Zachary Laga of Canada are just sort of, let's say, a little less than 2 points out of third at this point. So they're within striking distance of the podium. So that is very exciting. I'm really excited for the ice dance event always. But I think that, people are showing very different kind of types of a personality in these rhythm dances. I'm not a fan of all of them, but I love the fact that there's like lots of creativity going on, and that's what I think is super interesting. Do you have any comments about ice dance in general? Again, it comes down to the choreography. We're going to get some choreographers on by hook or by crook here on 3turn3 to talk broad strokes about what's important.
I think so. I think that would be great, Paige. So I'm going to ask you a question about the short dance and your
Rhythm
thoughts.
dance. Rhythm dance.
Rhythm dance. Sorry. Because at first, wasn't it called short dance?
Oh, it's been called everything.
Okay,
anyway,
fine.
It's
All
back
right,
to
so
rhythm dance.
back to rhythm dance. So when they brought that in, what were your first thoughts about that?
Do you know what? Tomato.
Okay.
I honestly, like, for me, my favorite of all of these kinds of events was the original set pattern dance, the OSP, where things like the Tango Romantica came out of the OSP. I loved the originality and the creativity of finding a rhythm and then people, constructing steps to it. When we've had, constructing a part of a set pattern dance, meh, because, theoretically the rhythm is supposed to be within X number of beats per bar, bars per minute, whatever the measurement is. But I find that there isn't enough for me of the set pattern dance to really be able to compare skaters. So what I loved about compulsory dances, and I know I'm old school. I know. People can whine. People can yell at me. But the fact of the matter is, you could really see the skating. When you put two dancers side by side doing pick a dance, you could really see the edge quality. There was no sort of, there was no capitalizing on just their strengths and trying to minimize their weaknesses, which is what choreography should do. Good choreographers, that's what they're doing all the time. I loved compulsory dances because you could really see apples to apples what we were talking about in terms of timing, in terms of edge quality, in terms of quality of steps. So I like the rhythm dance because I think it shows us sort of more character and kind of more flair, and kind of a bit of an essence, but it doesn't capture my attention in the same way as other dance events have. I like it because it's entertaining, and I like seeing the qualities between the skaters, and I like seeing that kind of sort of relationship. But as far as like pure skating is concerned, meh. Did I say that out loud? Oh my goodness, people are going to yell at me. But it's just kind of what I see. As I said, find it highly entertaining. Love to see what people come up with. Love the creativity. But it's not, the purist in me, not as interesting.
I think that
Right. Elizabeth's got another comment about ice dance. Seems to have been quite generous on the dance marking last night. An example of why one shouldn't compare scores across competitions. You preach, sister. That's what I say. This could be a challenge in choosing the Spanish team for the Olympics. You like the OSP too. I just knew it. I knew that we were OSP sisters. But the thing is, and that's, the thing that's hard for audiences, I think, is that when you're looking at a ski race and skier A goes down the hill at X speed, when they go down the next hill in the next competition, you can refer back to how fast they went down this hill, and you sort of have a basis for comparison. Each panel is unique. Each competition is unique. I never compare the scores because it's what happens in this competition. So I don't really care what somebody posted in their last event, because to me it's irrelevant. It's who they're competing against in this event and what is that going to mean to the result.
And like I say to skating parents all the time, our sport is subjective.
Really? Are you sure?
Right? I mean, you hear these parents, and God love them, and they ask you these questions. It's like, well, in her last competition,
she got
she
dot
was,
dot dot.
yeah, and then in this competition she skated even better, but yet she received this. And you kind of just remind them that, well, in her last competition she had judge A, B, C, D, and E judging.
And
in this
competition XXX. Yeah.
Right. I mean, they've got different ones. So I think that's what's really kind of tough. And, it's very interesting that our sport is so subjective. And I think what they are trying to do, they being, the powers that be,
yeah,
right? They are trying to make our sport more fair by adding a value, a base value to each of the elements, and then the judges have that opportunity to kind of give it, a grade of execution that is plus, fair, or below average. And so I agree with you that you take one score from one competition and you take another score from another competition, and they can't be the same. Because they've got different people judging them. If they skate as well, then the judges have, more confidence to be able to say, well, you know what, then that's worth a +3 or a +2 or, what have you, a +4 even. But at the same time, it's subjective. That's at the end of the day, that's what our sport is.
Well, and not only that, I think that there are elements, like I love the fact that the judging system does try and identify and quantify different elements, but there's still that magic dust. People keep saying to me, and I'm going to write a blog post about it. They keep saying, what does Canada need to do to sort of get back on top? And I say, and I mean this in the most respectful way, you can't create a Patrick Chan or a Tessa and Scott or Megan and Eric or Caitlin Osmond. That was like the dream team that was at the 2018 Olympics, or Gabby Daleman for that matter. You can only see talent and nurture it. And there are so many variables that go into it. But there's a certain amount of, magic dust that gets sprinkled on top of these skaters that I don't care what programs you put in place, you can't create them. All you can do is find talent and nurture it, as far as I'm concerned. I think that sometimes national sport organizations and provincial sporting organizations, they have wonderful programs in place to try and nurture that talent. But I think that for, the wider audience who isn't involved in elite sport, because we were so strong for such a long time with Canadian skaters, they somehow believe that there's some kind of magic formula to creating more amazing skaters, and there really isn't. You have to wait, you have to see the talent, and then you have to nurture it. So what are your thoughts about, can you create another wave of Patrick Chan at all, or do you have to just wait for it to appear?
Okay, so on that subject, let's talk about the United States and how within the US, a lot of those athletes, especially in the men's and the ladies' events, used to say that their national event was like their World Figure Skating Championships.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, that was one of their hardest competitions that they had to do.
For sure.
You know? And I think because that country is so huge, those kids fought. They just fought through that event to make sure that no matter what, they were going to be able to make it through their national event to be able to get chosen for the World Championships and or the Olympic Championships.
Yep.
And I think what happens sometimes is that either skaters get a little too complacent or countries get a little too complacent, right? And so I think you have to kind of almost be willing, to kind of risk that placement for the fact of making better competition. Like, let's put it this way. Let's talk about the Russian ladies right now. I mean, there are many Russian ladies. And what we kind of say in skating is that there is a huge depth of Russian ladies. And so what I mean by that is that, you know, anywhere from first, second, and third place Russian ladies to fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh place Russian ladies are just as good as one another, you know, very often.
Yeah.
And so that creates the depth of that field. And I think sometimes that's got to almost be that mentality that, you know, the deeper your field, the better the skating is going to be. You know, you're going to get the best skaters, you know, coming through that. So you're right. I mean, you know, sprinkling that magic dust, you know, is one way to do it. But at the same point in time, you know, making all of these kids, you know, compete against one another and try to be better than one another is also another way to do it. And that's exactly what I think Russia's doing.
The talent's got to be there, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Great comment from Craig. Kind of like how so many fans' magic solution is to get coached by Orser. And you know what? Brian Orser is a genius coach. He has had some amazing results, including Junhwa Cha this weekend so far at NHK Trophy. But what many fans don't understand, I think, is that there are only so many hours in a day. And as amazing as a coach is, a coach also has to have capacity to be able to adequately support their skater. And if you've got a gazillion skaters, then you're not able to sort of address the needs of each skater as much as you can. And Brian Orser, as I said, genius coach, but there are many genius coaches. You know,
let's talk about this too, Peach, because for instance, the Russian phenom coach, you know, Iteri has probably, she probably hasn't been home since, you know, the senior Grand Prix started.
2003.
Right? She's been traveling at, you know, at every single event so far. Why? Because she's had skaters at every single event. So what are her other skaters doing? You know, that are not with
She's got a team. Yeah.
Right? She's got a team. So, you know, she might be the head of that team, just like Brian, but as well, you know, speaking as a coach, you know, you have to rely on your team of coaches to help, you know, nurture and to train and to enthuse and to support, you know, your top level athletes when you're not there.
Yeah, exactly. All right, people, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to check out my blog. I really could use the numbers. And if you're on YouTube, please subscribe to my channel. We've got lots more skating stuff to come all season long, including who knows from where. Let's just say I'm traveling. I want to let you know that Scott Russell will be here next week. And in the meantime, from Mazdami and Charlene, Mazen, any last words before we go?
Love you lots. Charlene, missed you this week. You know what? We'll see you next week. It was a great show. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye-bye.